time you got? All right. Hello again. This is Fred Hadley, and we're back on the air. We're reporting live on Facebook, where a large wrecker has arrived on the scene. And they're preparing for the removal operation. There was an elderly woman driver that was rescued by fire rescue from her sinking vehicle, which is still in the E2W canal. That you can't quite see the canal, but it's just before the noise abatement wall in the background. We have a giant tow truck here. I don't know how many wheels it's got, but it's got a lot of wheels. I guess 2, 4, 6, 8, 10-wheeler, I guess, at least. Unless those are double tires in the back, in which case add 4. He's now doing a U-turn at the corner of Century Village Boulevard and East Village Lane, maneuvering into position. And I guess they're gonna back right through the opening or extend the tow rope or chain, whatever they call it, and maybe just pull the vehicle that way. For those of you just tuning in, about 11 o'clock this morning, we got a report from Dan Tanzer and Dave Merzon that there was a bad accident on the corner of Century Village Boulevard and East Village Lane here in Century Village, Boca Raton, where it's in the mid-80s, maybe 10 to 20 mile an hour breeze, but otherwise clear conditions. Apparently, what happened is, right about where that flatbed is, a woman driver was coming along, and it looks like it's going to be an SUV, but we'll know in a few minutes when they pull it out. And she swerved to avoid a U.S. mail delivery truck, one of our regular delivery trucks. As far as I know, she didn't hit the truck, but she did hit a signpost, and you can see a piece of her car just beyond that palm tree, that red plastic, looks like, candy apple red. Then leveled another sign, and then there's a bent stop sign right over here. Some debris is on the ground. And then there's a hat in the roadway. The hat, I'm told, belonged to a pedestrian that was hit. We don't have confirmation of this, but it's possible that the pedestrian was dragged by the red vehicle through the fence and into the 70-foot grassy berm that is between the perimeter fence along East Village Lane and the E2W Canal. The canal runs the entire length of East Village Drive from the southern end, which is over there, I'm showing you now, all the way to the northern end, which would be Yamato Road. And it's not very deep, the canal. I'd estimate less than 10 or 12 feet deep, depending on time of year. Right now we're in a mild drought, so it probably wasn't that deep. WPTV is reporting that fire rescue, 2 guys got the woman out of the car. In our previous video, we had pictures of the 2 fire rescue guys being hosed down by one of their hoses. Obviously, they're firemen. And so they were obviously the ones that went in the water. Looked like 2 20-something, 30-something-year-old guys. We have no idea what happened to the pedestrian, but I wouldn't have liked to have been that pedestrian if indeed she did hit someone. Just in front of the tow truck, you can see a white and blue cap still lying in the road. And we've been waiting a good hour for this large wrecker from Sisters Towing and Transportation to arrive. WPTV.com has already got an item on their website, and they have a photo, presumably that was transmitted by one of the fire rescue guys, or maybe the dispatch. I don't know how that works. And it shows what looks to be the roof of an SUV, red in color, that was semi-submerged. The water was almost up to the roof in the canal. And the woman has been removed and obviously taken to a medical facility. We don't know where. WPTV says there's no report on her condition. We're happy to say that they have a link to my video, and it says on the video that it was posted by Fred Hadley, so perhaps that's how they got the scoop. Somebody watching Facebook may have called it in and referred them to my Facebook page. I'm a resident here in Century Village since 2008. I published the Village Century newsletter to over 1,250 residents here. We have 5,712 apartments, so I've got a ways to go as far as readership. And it's been a crazy week. In addition to the shutdown of the swimming pools and the clubhouse, we had an alleged attempted suicide attempt the other day. And it just happened to be a neighbor of mine 3 doors away who apparently walked, ran, or jumped into the lake behind Cornwall E. And we don't know if it was a real suicide attempt or just a cry for help, but he's been was held under the Baker Act for 72 hours. He was brought to Fair Oaks, which is a treatment facility for mental and drug abuse problems, alcohol abuse. We're not saying that that was what led to his decision to enter the water, but obviously he was not of sound mind when he did that. The lake is pretty dirty. So now what you're looking at is the tow truck operator is unspooling or unraveling, whatever you want to call it, a cable. And apparently they're going to draw that cable out. So once again, if you're just joining us, the rescue portion of this post-accident scene has been concluded with the removal of an elderly woman driver. Don't know who she is, whether she's a resident, we presume she was, who had been heading east on Century Village Boulevard, swerved to avoid a mail truck, according to eyewitnesses, and wound up hitting a pedestrian that was crossing, I guess, Century Village Boulevard at the intersection with East Village Lane. And from what we've heard, we haven't confirmed this yet, the pedestrian was picked up by the car and taken through the fence. We don't know the condition of the elderly woman driver, who appeared to have been speeding, to have done all this damage. This is the fence that she went through, obviously not right over here, but a few feet north of here. And now they've got somebody over the embankment there, or right at the bank of the canal. This is Fred Hadley. We're reporting live on Facebook. Alongside the E2W Canal. Behind it is the Turnpike noise abatement wall. And we're in Century Village West. in West Boca Raton, Florida, on a beautiful spring day. Temperatures are in the mid-80s. Wind is between 10 and 20 miles an hour. Conditions are very dry down here, so obviously weather would not have been a factor. So we're waiting for them to get a hook around, I guess, the axle of the submerged vehicle. Now they're bringing in some guy with a rope. Looks like ropes. Looks like they're tying the two pieces together. He's unspooling some rope or cable, can't tell from here. Talking to the guy that's right in the canal or alongside of it. The other end of that cable is connected to this tow truck. They can hear you on Facebook, so.
I don't give a damn.
All right.
You shouldn't be getting your night anyway, honey. It ain't nobody's business.
So now the guy has climbed across the canal. I think his pants are all wet. He's been in the water. He's got a scuba tank on, diver. He's now on the far shore of the E2W Canal. I can just see a little bit of the red color of the vehicle now from this position. If I bring the camera up a little higher, you might be able to see it. Just threw a rope over to the other side. And once again, we're at the corner of East Village Lane and Century Village Boulevard, where they have this monster tow truck that's backed up to this chain link fence. This is the chain link fence that I have my hand on that the vehicle crashed through approximately 10 yards north of where I'm standing. There is a directional arrow there that indicated that you must turn left or right. That was knocked down and dragged through by the vehicle. Paying out a little more cable now from the tow truck. The vehicle that went into the canal had been coming from Century Village Boulevard, which is over to the left on your camera, on your screen, and struck a pedestrian allegedly right in the crosswalk in front of the tow truck. His hat is still on the roadway. There were reports that the pedestrian was carried by the car as it broke through this chain link fence that is the perimeter of Century Village. There's about a 70-foot grassy area between this fence and the canal. And you have a diver in the water now who's trying to obviously secure the cable, probably around one of the axles, so they can do this removal. If you're just joining us, this is Fred Hadley reporting live on Facebook for the Village Century. We're alongside the fence that separates Century Village from the E2W Canal, operated by Lake Worth Drainage, that runs along Florida's Turnpike. That's the Turnpike wall. Behind the canal, you can see there's a diver wearing a scuba tank, standing in the water or near the water and trying to secure the vehicle. I guess they're wrapping it around with ropes and about to begin this recovery operation. The driver, an elderly woman, according to WPTV, was rescued earlier, approximately 11 o'clock this morning. We got on the scene at 11:10. I believe they'd already removed her from the vehicle. I have another video a little earlier than this one where you can see the operation at that point. There were a lot of fire rescue vehicles here. They've all gone, and it's now police. I see our security director from Century Village, Steve Stein, is on the scene, and one of the security guards, a couple of police deputies, tow truck personnel, and somebody's carrying away the damaged sign right now. And any minute now, we expect to see that chain grow taut and then beginning to remove the vehicle. We just moved a bent pole. We're moving a bent pole out of the way. Perhaps that was part of the chain link fence. Looks like the top member. The divers are still doing something in the water. I see some movement of the scuba guy. It's like he's wrapping a rope around something, can't really tell what. I imagine we're just moments away from the extrication of the vehicle. I am getting a low battery notice on my phone, so I hope I can last as long as necessary. See that vehicle. The diver is now getting a little bit higher up. Might be standing on the vehicle, can't really tell. It looks like he was maybe closing a door or something. I can't really tell, we're too far away. So it looks like there's some tension now in the chain. I guess they're making sure that it's secure before they start hoisting. See if we can get a little up angle here. Well, imagine we're only moments away from the tow. And his tow truck is at the intersection where the car lost control, Century Village Boulevard and East Village Lane. We're bringing a couple extra pieces of material, I guess, to bind the car. They just threw it down into the canal. Gotta keep going as long as his battery lasts. Hope we get a shot of the car. Bringing an extra chain or a loop of something. Now we can see the scuba diver. He's now taking off his scuba tanks, handing it to an assistant. So I would imagine that they're done with the hitching up. Doesn't have to go in the water, obviously. And they're making the final connections to the tow rope. Try to get this vehicle out. This is Fred Hadley. We're reporting live on Facebook alongside the E2W Canal that's in between Century Village and Florida's Turnpike, where an SUV lost control, went through this perimeter fence, but further up, and possibly dragged a pedestrian through the fence. We're not sure of that. But there was supposedly a collision with a pedestrian. We have no word on that person's condition or the elderly female driver. WPTV is reporting that her condition is unknown, but she was removed shortly after 11 a.m. This all started somewhere between 10:30 and 11. We were first notified by Dan Tanzer and also Dave Merzon. We appreciate that. And that's how we can cover these stories. We get tips from you viewers. We're just waiting patiently now for the final connections to be made to the vehicle. Seem to be adjusting the position of the tow cable. See, the diver is throwing over his fins, so I would imagine any moment now they should start pulling this thing out. All right, everybody's climbing up. I think we ought to get some action any minute now. All right, the tow cable is now tensing up. Hope my battery lasts a couple more minutes. Seem to be looking at the tow operator. Here comes the vehicle. You can see just a little bit of the roof, it looks like. And here it comes. Looks like the battery gods are with us. Slowly, we're looking at, looks like the rear end of the vehicle. You can see the backup lights, tail light, rear trunk, rear window. Looks like a Florida plate, standard issue. Looks like a fairly late model car. Looks Looks like there was some airbag deployment. They've got chains connected to the rear wheel. So here you are. This is the tow truck on East Village Lane. Can you tell what kind of car that is?
Red one.
A red one, he said. Okay. So it looks like a crossover vehicle, not exactly an SUV. Over here you can see the damaged fence. Now they're pulling the vehicle back further. If you're just joining us, this vehicle had been coming from East Village Lane, went through a couple of traffic signs, including the stop sign that you see blowing in the wind. Kept going, plowed through the fence after supposedly knocking down a pedestrian first. Supposedly that's his hat right in front of the tow truck, a little blue and white cap. Here's the vehicle. I think it has a Century Village decal on the side window, so it was probably a resident. So that came out fairly easy. Now they're pulling the car a little bit further back now. I don't know whether they want to get it out onto the street. Whether they're going to leave it inside, they're probably going to take it out. Looks like the windshield is shattered, which I'm not surprised after hitting a couple of metal signs and going through the fence. The bad news is we had a report that the pedestrian was dragged by the car through the fence. If that's the case, it's very difficult to survive something like that. Police photographer is taking pictures of the windshield. Seems to be shattered. Removing the some of the chains from the rear of the vehicle. Anybody know what kind of vehicle that is? Don't say a red one. It's a Mazda, I'm told. Mazda hatchback. Any idea how old it is? Yeah. So we got a late model Mazda hatchback apparently. It was driven by an elderly woman driver. It does seem to have a decal for the gate entry, so we presume she's a resident. And she was trying to avoid a mail truck over here on East Village Lane, and she swerved around it. Supposedly hit a pedestrian whose hat is just in front of the tow truck. There's like a white cap in the roadway there. And I guess we're going to sign off now because my battery is about to die. And I want to make sure this gets posted. So, again, this is Fred Hadley reporting live at Century Village Boulevard and East Village Lane inside Century Village, Boca Raton, Florida, where an elderly woman driver lost control of her Mazda hatchback and tried to avoid a mail truck on East Village Drive and knocked into a pedestrian and possibly took him through the fence. The vehicle continued through the fence, which you can see is down, and went further into the canal. And as it was submerging, fire rescue was able to get her out. WPTV is reporting her condition is unknown. So stay tuned, and we'll post any additional updates. Fred Hadley reporting live. If you like this video,